And good afternoon. Thank you for joining Brightspot for this webinar today on our to-do list for incentive travel in this post-COVID-19 world. It dawned on me as we were preparing for this, unless anybody on this call was 120 years old, we've never seen a post-pandemic world. So this is something brand new. So we're delighted that you're joining us. I am Mike May. I'm president of Brightspot and a past chairman of the Incentive Research Foundation. And I am joined by Julie Blank, who is one of our directors of strategic accounts. And maybe more importantly today, this week, Julie, you are the buyer planner of the year for the Site Texas chapter. And what did Site Texas win this week? Oh, hit the mute, Julie.
God, I always do it.
The usual one, right?
Sorry. After 20 plus years, Site Texas won chapter of the year this year. So we're super excited.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It says a lot about you and the board's work. And in my mind, if you are the planner of the year from the chapter of the year, that's sort of like being the MVP of the Super Bowl. So congratulations. And
okay, thank you.
Let's see, this is our third in a series of to-do webinars. We previously did one a week ago, 2 weeks ago on Thursday and a week ago on channel incentives and gift card to-dos. And when we send out the slide deck at the end of this call, you can click those links at the bottom if you want to see a blog summary of either of those. We would welcome your questions today. We'd love to hear from you. And if you submit a question, you will have a very good chance of winning a $50 gift card. Michael, our marketing manager, will be here to help us with the questions and pick the winner. So we hope to get some really good questions. We're going to jump right in with an audience poll. Julie, what do you want to say about this?
Yeah, before we got started, we just wanted to do a quick poll. And if you will weigh in for us on when you think companies or your company will be comfortable to restart incentive travel trips. Curious as to what your thoughts are. And I can't see who votes, so I think you have to tell me, Mike.
Yeah, Julie, I wanted to vote too. And I won't tell you what my vote is because I don't want to color the results from anybody, but this is very interesting. We'll cover what the IRF and Site study said on this very question in just a few slides. But this one is fascinating to me because it really gets to the importance of sentiment. So many decisions right now are being driven by what the sentiment is of the decision maker. We often see it varies depending on where that person sits. I would say if they're in California or New York, they might be a little more cautious. Across the Sun Belt and through the middle part of the US, we're seeing that clients are a little more willing to travel. So let's see, Michael, are you able to display the results? Okay, very interesting. So the number one result is Q4, followed by Q3 and into Q1 of 2022. Very good. All right, well, we'll try to all mentally remember that. And that's going to align to what some of the research shows that we're going to get to. All right, well, most of what we're going to cover today comes from the number one study of the incentive travel industry that was done by SITE, Society of Incentive Travel Excellence, the Incentive Research Foundation, as well as FICP. At the bottom of your screen, you see a link where you can go to the study. And I'd also encourage you, if you don't already get free research from the IRF, you could go to that link and sign up for free, and every month you'll get a research study. As we get ready to start, we've been talking about this when we first started this pandemic. We were kind of in a robust economy until March 15th of 2020. And then everything came crashing down on our heads. And at that time, we talked a lot about, well, how long is this period of abnormality going to exist? And what's the recovery going to be? Is it a V, which it was a V there for a bit? This looks a little more like a check mark or an L standing on its end. But the real question we're now all wondering is, when does the post-COVID next normal period begin? in my wishful thinking, I'm wishing that July 4th is a new Independence Day when we all declare ourselves to be mostly practically free of COVID. Maybe not completely, but that we are a long way down the road towards herd immunity. But what we're going to talk about today is the to-do list for that post-COVID period. So the first one we're going to start out is talking about when you should schedule your next trip.
I will jump in here. So as it says here, I think it's really true that, vaccines are going to create our new post-COVID world. Remember right after 9/11, when we were all up in arms about not traveling with more than 3 ounces of liquid in our carry-on, or having to walk barefoot through security so they could scan our shoes. It was just unthinkable. But now it's just our reality. It's what we do every time we travel. So now today we're starting to wrap our brains around testing prior to travel, pre and post, and what that looks like. Maybe that'll become our new reality. I was reading an article this morning out of Hawaii where the lieutenant governor said that as early as late spring, they're going to start vaccination travel. And vaccination travel, they're going to aim to eliminate both quarantine and testing for anyone who's received a vaccination. Of course, they're awaiting results from the CDC for confirmation that you can't be a carrier if you've been vaccinated, but, proof of vaccination could very well become our new reality. So I think, as the information changes every day, it's so much to keep up with. I think it's imperative for us and our hotel and DMC partners that we get back to the business of hosting President's Club trips. So while there will be adjustments and new normals, our partners are working as hard as they can to make it as easy and safe as possible for all of us to move forward safely. And it's a bit like looking into a crystal ball and trying to determine what the future will hold. But, the very near future includes incentive travel. That I do know, and waiting too long to schedule your next trip does have downsides, which we'll touch on a little bit later.
Hey, Julie, what that incentive travel index reported was 59%. And if I remember, I think our survey was 30% in Q4, 20%, 27% in Q3. So we are right at the 57% expectation.
Wow.
I think that's so powerful because it really says the majority of companies are going to be ready to hold the trip in Q3 and Q4. And when you roll that out to next year into 2022, the study said 88% of companies will be holding trips. So as we say, we think it's time to schedule your trip. About the only companies we see that are not scheduling a trip are those whose business has been very adversely affected by the pandemic. I know you have one that said, many of our locations aren't open. Many of our people are furloughed. We just can't even set the rules for a qualification for a 2022 trip.
Yep, that is true.
So I think it's important for all of us as leaders that are on this call to be strong. The study shows that things are going to turn around. We do see cases declining, vaccines increasing. And in this study, it said execs remain strongly committed to club trips when you see that 83% are still committed. It was fascinating to me that alternatively, while the execs were committed, companies' risk aversion was a little bit higher. But I'm reminded as a leader of 2 quotes, one from a personal friend that was a VP of sales 25 years ago that I worked at. He always said the salespeople and the leaders need to have a bulletproof, mentally tough attitude. And I can still remember that leader talking about having a bulletproof attitude. And I think as leaders, we should have a bulletproof attitude as to what the future brings. And John Maxwell, who's one of the very best speakers on leadership, said that a leader's vision should see more and see before the rest of the company does. So I think for us as leaders, we should be strong. That doesn't mean we do anything crazy today, but that we're strong with what our future plans are.
Good. Managing the risk. So while we're all working hard to try and get back to easy, safe travel, definitely not to say there's not a lot of work to be done on the part of the planner to manage the risks that do exist, or that worst case scenario. So, those risks include the things you see listed here on the slide, many of which we've all become intimately familiar with this past year. But as we plan, it's important to keep in mind that many of these bullets have many sub bullets, and many of them will likely result in new line items on our budgets. So, if we have the same room block we always did, but we need more space for social distancing, there could be a cost for that, among many things. So I think one of the, I guess I'll call it newer considerations we're dealing with is the duty of care piece, which has been really interesting. That's what if test results don't come back before flights are scheduled, or what happens, if a test comes back positive. And so these are all things we have to think about. In these cases, we've seen hotels offer 30 to 50% room rate reductions
Mhm.
if you test positive and have to quarantine in a designated area on property. I mean, 7 to 14 days of quarantine, even at a 50% rate, is a big budget line item. So, and it's super helpful, by the way, if the property happens to be an all-inclusive in this case and you have F&B included. But the hotels are comping rooms if tests don't come back in time for flights and people have to stay an extra night. But, that, and along with the parameters of managing the 72-hour window for guests who extend pre or post, there's just so many dollar signs tied to these little things that, we really have to think about and address up front when we're creating budgets and negotiating contracts and things like that. And obviously we want our attendees to have peace of mind. So sharing those plans and making sure everybody understands the risk is really important as well.
Yeah, that's great. Julie, a few years ago, there was another IRF study on disruption that talked about, it's around 50% of the time that events have some type of disruption. Most often it's weather, but that what really jumped out to me is planners estimated that 25% of their total time was spent planning for disruption, having contingency. So, everything you've said and what that study said is right on to plan for managing risk.
Yeah, no, I totally believe that.
The other thing while we manage for risk that really jumped out to me is, that everybody voted and said that, most planners, 77% of them predicted that there would be only moderate change or no change at all, which I think is good, because as much as we toss around the ideas of next normal, new normal, and all of that, it really starts to say that the next normal is going to be pretty similar to the old normal. And that for the most part, it's the minor tweaks that you were just talking about, and not, a completely radical change. But we'll talk about some of those tweaks.
Yeah, I think the agendas do have to change a little bit. Again, not huge, but little different, little changes can make a big difference. I think many of our clients are doing welcome receptions and foregoing, the buffet dinner and letting guests dine on their own, so they limit exposure there. We're seeing group activities like catamarans be replaced with semi-group activities like the individual speedboat snorkel tours, where guests are in their own boat and kind of can determine how much interaction they want to have. Like gifting experiences, we can schedule those at hospitality desks throughout the day instead of creating the typical line that you see at the welcome reception, where everybody's in one place at one time. So, and I think it's important to remember that one of the things we've heard for years in many of our clients' surveys is attendees want more free time. And this is definitely the time to give it to them. So, in the past, we've offered city passes where guests can see what they want to see on their own timeline. They can just relax around the pool. I think offering choice and flexibility is really important for comfort right now for travelers, and third parties and DMCs can get super creative and come up with ideas that'll really work well.
Julie, I know we were in a client meeting and I heard you tell a client that you would normally be the person voting for more group dinners, the activities being a big group activity like a catamaran, but that you said this is the one year to adjust that and to have more free time. I think one of the other things that really jumped out, in that study was that luxury is going to become more important, because maybe attendees shrink, maybe the trip doesn't go as far. So maybe there's a little more budget this year, or a little free money in the budget, and that therefore emphasizing some luxury experiences, whether that be the hotel or other touches,
Yeah, I love
would
that.
be a
That's a
small
great,
tweak this year.
love it.
Okay, dollarize soft benefits. So this recent study, the Incentive Travel Index, said, normally we expect sales to be the number one important measure of success in a trip or the payback on the trip. But this year it showed that rising to the top were these soft benefits of things like employee engagement, customer satisfaction, retention. And I'm reminded of one of our clients that was in the telecom space who said when they looked at dollarizing the benefit of the trip, one of their big factors was that it takes their salespeople a full 12 to 18 months to fully ramp up. So when they put a value to that training and a value to that retention, it creates a huge ROI for the trip just based on retention. So trying to, make some assumptions and assign a financial value to some of these soft benefits will help with your internal sourcing organizations and with the CFO to justify the value of the trip.
Awesome. Staying close to home. So I'm ready to go to Italy tomorrow if they would have me, but probably no surprise that we're seeing a big demand for domestic. I think while Hawaii was a little tricky to get into with travel restrictions in the beginning, they've come a long way. So I think Hawaii is going to be in high demand, particularly Kauai and the Big Island, as they have fewer travelers than the Mauis and Oahu's, which really helps with social distancing. And your winters are probably less likely to have visited those islands, so maybe a new adventure for them. In the Florida, I think Palm Beach is on the hot list right now, as well as Clearwater for kind of a value destination for lower budgets. We're seeing the Austin, Deer Valley, Park City, things that we all hear about, but we necessarily maybe haven't operated in a long time. On California, the Santa Barbara, Napa Valley, you can do experiences domestically around glamping to give attendees a real taste of something different. And then I personally am loving like the low country, Charleston, Savannah, Deep South experience right now. We put together an amazing itinerary for a 4-night program at the Montage Palmetto Bluff, which is definitely luxury. And I'd honestly be happy to share it with anyone who might be interested. I was blown away with the experience we were able to pull together. Truly, I think an agenda that would hold its own alongside some European, trip itineraries. So I think my clients and therefore myself have focused on international travel for so long that even I had forgotten like what a truly unique program we can put together close to home until everybody's ready to dust off their passports.
Yeah, it's definitely a good year to do a change of pace trip, whether that be the second half of this year or 2022. Obviously, our discussion here reflects a bit of a North America bias, but I know we have some listeners from Europe on this webinar, and the study reported the same out of Europe, that the European-based audiences were probably going to stay within region rather than flying across an ocean to a new destination. Let's see, our next habit we say here, or next point, is to avoid bad habits. And the number one bad habit to avoid would be don't substitute the trip for cash. I feel like if we did a survey of this, while we say that, and while many people would see the wisdom in that advice, I feel like about 75% of companies violated this rule and substituted cash. The sales team, they already have a cash compensation plan. They've got cash commissions, cash pay. We worry a lot about what happens next year or the year after when a winner says, hey, can I take that cash out substitute deal? So we strongly say, keep the award in kind. Whether number one in kind would be individual travel. We have a screenshot here of the Bright Spot Travel Boutique, which are individual trips, but we also, I know Julie, you had many clients that did merchandise awards where they got points in a merchandise catalog, which is nice. It doesn't dollarize and monetize the award to a fixed number. So, they can go splurge, but yet, not try to, think, oh, what's the exact dollar value of the prize. So, we think it's just really important to have a good habit here of offering a substitute award if you're not having a trip this year.
Very good point. Let's see. Don't be last. So kind of back to that crystal ball that I was talking about, and really the reality that the way we and other people feel today about travel is not the reality that we're going to be feeling in 3 to 6 months, down the road. I think when incentive travel is back, I think it's going to be back in a big way. I think our winners are ready to be recognized in the way that only an incentive trip can provide, with the destination and the activities and really the emotional connection that's the secret sauce for us. Demand is increasing for 2022, and today there are still great destination and resort deals available out there for those who are looking. But when the world opens back up and planes are flying and hotel phones are ringing, group space is expected to fill up quickly, and the prices are going to, they're going to increase. So when everyone feels good and everybody feels like it's a great time to travel, it's likely too late as far as an incentive trip is concerned. And you don't want to settle for a property you don't love or pay a premium for getting started too late in the game. So we like to say, don't be late to the party.
Yeah, certainly business people tend to run in herds. We tend to be pack animals. And, this is an area, if we can get ahead of the herd, we can lock in some values, and good incentive companies like Bright Spot would also work with you to have flexible force majeure clauses, flexible attrition clauses that still give you some wiggle room, but yet lock in that value. So perfect timing, Julie. We are going to hit the Q&A phase now. We have a lot of attendees, so I hope we get a lot of questions. As a reminder, click the Q&A button, type in your question. Our outstanding marketing manager, Michael, is going to pick in his independent judgment, which cannot be objected to or appealed, what he thinks the best question is. And while you are typing in your questions now, a quick promotion. A resource on our website that is really good is an ebook called Tips to Improve an Incentive Travel Program. I will give a shout out to Julie again. She was the major editor in producing this ebook, which is really a great resource about how to elevate your trip. And then on the right side of the screen, we just this week posted a blog of our favorite US destinations that we think would be good choices right now for a domestic US based trip. Many of the ideas that Julie just went through. So with that, let's jump into the Q&A. Michael, do you want to read the first question to us?
Sure thing. First question comes from Michael. Would you recommend individual incentive travel as a safer option? In parentheses, not having to congregate in group outings, etc.
Yeah, it's probably safer. To me, it's individual still feels like the fallback option because of all the great benefits of gathering a group together again that we talked about. Engagement, retention, and all the wonderful things that having FaceTime between execs and top performers fosters, networking among top performers. It still suggests that, but I think individual travel is a good fallback, and we've definitely been doing some of that.
Great.
I was going to say Caroline's question kind of follows up on that. She said, am I allowed to read a question, Mike?
Yeah, go for it.
He said, for individual travel options in lieu of the trip, are you finding it best to leave open-ended or do package trips that are semi-planned for them? I will say we've gone both ways. I think it depends a lot on your audience and how well traveled they are. Some people can get in and out, no problem at all. We do have a couple programs where they're traveling whenever they want, but we are concierging the trip. So we are, taking care of transportation to and from the hotel, and we are helping with activities. Some of these are retail store employees and people who aren't quite as well traveled and need their hands held a little bit more. So I think it could go either way, just kind of depending on your audience.
Great. Let's see. Next question. Just whenever you want to take one, just let me know. Patty asks, we are booking Hungary for May 2022. Do you feel international travel will be okay by then?
You know, that relying on the objective measure of the surveys, I would say yes. We're certainly still in an uncertain time, but I do think we're at a real inflection point where we see globally cases are falling. I know in the US, we've now reached a tipping point where more people have been vaccinated in the arm than have actually had COVID. So I feel like that's a real tipping point. Even some of the docs seem to be saying, around the middle of the year, we could conceivably reach herd immunity, and that many of the models are underestimating the combined effect of vaccines plus antibodies of those people that have already had the virus. So I think May 22 will be a home run for you. I would feel good about that.
Great. Let's see. Alan asks, do you believe or have data around increased use or need of DMCs post-COVID to help manage all the health and safety issues, rules, etc.?
What do you think, Julie? I don't know that we have data, but what's our anecdotal experience?
Yeah, I have not seen data, but this is where it's really important that you have good partners on the ground. And I just am so thankful for our long-term relationships, because these are the people who we have to depend on, to get the vaccines to the hotels so that we can get everybody vaccinated and manage there's so much here. So I will dig for some data, but I know we certainly are relying on them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's been disruption in the DMC space. Some have really curtailed staff. Some have gone out of business, but the same thing's going to be true with activities in a local market, restaurants in a local market. So that feet on the ground DMC, which stands for Destination Management Company, is going to be, I believe, critically important to have the latest information.
Great.
I'll answer Jennifer's question about interest in Bermuda or the Virgin Islands. They're looking for maybe a club trip later this year. Bermuda, not so much. We haven't seen yet. Number one, it's a little bit on the pricier side. And number two, the weather it's not really a good time for Bermuda right now. But the US Virgin Islands, I think we have a trip maybe right now or next week in St. Thomas, which is a US Virgin Island. So the guests were super comfortable traveling there. I think the company did a survey and 90-something% were comfortable going. So they're actually operating that coming up here right now or in the next week or so.
Yeah, definitely think those would both be great options.
All right, we have sorry. You want to add on to something or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Dana asks, how do we design a great experience and still follow the restrictions and protocols? The tough decision is when half the qualifiers want to group travel and half say I can't, or it's too soon, etc. So do we offer group and something else or just group?
Yeah, well, we could definitely still design a great trip. As we said at the outset, so much of it is driven by sentiment. And, I think if people are going to be ready to go travel, which by the way, one of the things that study said is there's a huge pent-up demand for travel. But if they're ready to get on the plane, I believe they'll be ready to participate in the on-site activities, dinners, excursions. We need to have some of those precautions, have some social distancing. But, most of the trips, they're going to look very different. Things are going to look very different in Q3 and Q4 than they do today.
Yeah, I think so. I've seen our clients do a lot with surveying too. They've done surveys on how comfortable people are. One of our clients said, go ahead, let's do April. Anybody who's comfortable, go in April. Anybody who's not, we'll do an individual trip for you later. I had a client today talking about splitting a group in two. Can we do 50% now for those who are ready to go and do another 50%, in the fall? So I think there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. It's just, every company is so different. Every leader is so different, their outcomes they're looking for. So I think it depends a lot on that, but we've got a lot of great ideas if we can help.
Hey, Julie and Michael, I see a similar question from Casey, who asks, any tips on handling winners or attendees who aren't comfortable traveling? And, the first thing I think of is don't immediately promote that there is a substitution option or that there's an opt-out alternative. But then if there is, one of the things we've been advising is to devalue that opt-out a bit so that people aren't making I don't know, it's not a perfectly balanced option. We had one client that the value of their trip, I think was going to be maybe $8,000 a couple, but they offered a $3,000 value alternative if people weren't comfortable traveling. So, I think if the company's going to do it, it's best to encourage people to go that direction. But we want people to do what they're comfortable at the same time.
All right. We have another question here from Frenchie. For larger conferences in 2021, is it best to break them up into smaller regional conferences to limit exposure?
Yeah, bounces a little bit over more to the meeting side, but I would, that's definitely a strategy. We've worked with a lot of companies, clients that have done a hybrid where they have a robust virtual option as well as the on-site option. But breaking things down into smaller conferences this year is a good strategy. I think particularly if it's Q2, Q3, Q4, people may feel very different about attending a large conference. Hey, Michael, why don't we do this? I know we still have a few questions here, but to respect our commitment to schedule, we wanted to try to finish this at 2:30. How about you think about the best question to do our award winner, and then Julie and I will be happy to continue and stay on the line for people that have questions.
All right, great. Let me type it up real quick. And our winner is Dana for a great question on deciding how to follow protocols while still putting on a great trip. So thank you, Dana. We'll follow up with you on the gift card.
Good.
Nice.
Let's see. Well, we still have some great questions here that we'll take. And I see one from Patty that asked, is contracting out a couple of years now a good idea? What do you think about that, Julie?
I always think it's a good idea, but I think you might have something specific in mind. I'm going to let you take that one.
No, I honestly, I feel like I just got knocked in the head because I think that's a fantastic strategy, and I actually can't believe we haven't been talking about that more. Yeah. I mean, getting beyond 22, when you look out to 23, one of the things that research study said is people predicted budgets in 23 will be 110% of what they were pre-pandemic. So the study seemed to have a real strong vote of confidence that 23 will be incredibly strong. So I think that would be a fantastic idea to try to lock in some values. I'm certain, there's probably a number of hotels that see that same research, probably are seeing the same thing in their booking, and their revenue managers probably realize it'll be strong. So some hotels may not have a value out in 23 or 24, but I bet there will be, 25, 30, 40% of the hotels that are being aggressive to put future business on the books. So great question.
I'll answer Jamie's question on, do we have any comments to share in regards to interest in Mexican destinations? I will say that as far as travel is concerned, I almost consider Mexico America right now. I think they were one of the quickest to respond. They're always, the first to come to us with how we're going to manage this. I think we've had so many people go and felt so safe that I think that is in people's mind the best option right now.
Yeah, that's Yeah, Mexico is always the value on the planet right now too. At least.
And I should say, while we're talking about Mexico, that our friend Casimiro at Fiesta Americana and Live Aqua would like to offer a complimentary stay to the winner, Dana Weaver, at the new Live Aqua in Punta Cana.
All right, Casimiro, get a little side promotion for Live Aqua in Punta Cana.
It also looks like Dana just said he returned from Mexico on Sunday, and it was very safe and very organized, which is what we've heard from everyone. It's awesome.
It's interesting. I see a comment from a hotel person with Four Seasons brand that reports that compression is very, in all caps, very strong in 22 and 23, and that's something we hadn't really talked about. But there are a lot of studies that say we are seeing that compression. It feels weird. That's what we were saying in 2019, that there's more demand than there is hotel capacity.
Yeah.
But hotels, it's interesting to hear from the hotel side. And particularly at the back half of this year, if people are trying to take on more space for their events, for more social distancing. I've also heard of compression there.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Thanks, Melissa. That's really good to think about. I think when I talk to clients who are so tired of talking about pushing 2020 program yet again into the fall, like I'm hesitant to bring up 23 and 24 because it's like we're still working on 20, but that is a really good point.
Hey, Julie, I see a question from Tony who asks, have we interviewed individual winners and travelers, not the companies, but the individuals, on what they're comfortable with? And I think I heard some of your clients had done that. Am I dreaming that, or?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I'm so sorry if that didn't come out right. Once the winners were announced, they are interviewing the winners and asking them about their comfort level. And that's where they're making the go decision or asking about splitting it. So yeah, I could probably go back, Tony, and share kind of some of the latest feedback that we've gotten with you as kind of a sample. But that's definitely the end traveler that we're surveying.
I know, I think what makes this so hard is to ask a question today about how you might feel in the fall.
I mean, we are asking it now for trips that are supposed to operate in the next month. So that is a little bit better, it's a little bit more relevant now, but.
Yeah, I know we had a client that asked, how do you feel about traveling to Riviera Maya in the fall? And 70% of their attendees said they were ready. They would be ready to register and go. So, kind of aligns with the question we started with at the very beginning of when do you think the recovery will be?
Yeah.
Another listener, Rudy, asked what international destinations will be safe to travel. And it's interesting. I was just reading something that talked about Australia and New Zealand were a popular place because those countries were perceived as being very aggressive in how they responded to the pandemic, and therefore were perceived to be very safe.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I really actually can. I think we are going to have to be careful moving forward. I'm looking right now at Vietnam and Thailand for 2022 for a client. Vietnam, we have no issues with, but Thailand has pretty much, many people there have told us themselves, we don't know if we're going to make it. We don't, as the smaller DMCs and some of the smaller hotels. So, Thailand, we kind of raised the red flag and moved away because, there are going to be those people who don't make it, and those different considerations we're going to have to look at when it's time to start traveling internationally again, unfortunately.
Good. Let's see, Michael, I am scanning these questions to see if we missed any.
I think we got them all too.
Really long list.
Yeah, there is a long list.
Thank you to Hugo, who is telling us as a DMC that they feel it's very important to bring people in early because they know the unique features and benefits of the destination and the value. Thanks, Hugo.
Yes, and I believe he feels that is a stronger trend in Europe than the US. Do you think that is true, or?
Yeah, it does seem like to me like Europe is taking a little more cautious approach right now. Yeah, I don't, for whatever reason, I can't put my finger on it, but so I think I would agree.
Okay. Yes, I believe that is all the questions. I'm so sorry if we're missing one. I'm not seeing it right now, but we are happy to field any questions afterwards. If you want to email us at info@brightspot.email, or as always, you can try our web chat feature on the site or get started button.
Good. You know, we've got our summary of the points we made here. And, you know, in that study, one of the things that jumped out to me the most is that people were ready to travel due to, you know, being cooped up and stuck behind Zoom screens like this, that people have come to appreciate travel even more after it was taken away from all of us. So, you know, I believe the majority are ready to travel. You know, there's certainly always going to be people that they're taking care of an elderly parent, or they have some underlying condition, or you know, a small baby, or something that just makes them a little more cautious. But you know, when this thing turns, I believe it's going to turn fast. So Julie's admonition of, you know, don't being last of the party, I believe is wise. All of us as business people need to try to look down the road and predict what we believe is going to happen, and make you know, make decisions that are going to have our company's position for success in the days ahead. So I think with that, we'll land this airplane. Thank you so much for sharing your time today. I know everybody is very busy here at the first of the year. We really are flattered that you shared your time. We'll be following up with a copy of the slide deck, probably even later today. And then next week, we'll post a transcript of this if you want to share it with any colleagues. So thank you, everybody. Have a great,
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.